Tama was once a valiant knight who met his end at the hands of demons. However, after his death, he was reincarnated into the body of an S-rank behemoth, a creature capable of destroying entire nations in seconds. But at least that's what his status screen claims. And in reality, he looks like an ordinary cat. Tama is grateful for this second chance at life, but feels conflicted about becoming a monster, especially since he spent his entire human life slaying them. While contemplating his new existence, an E-rank slime slowly inches toward him. Tama can tell the slime is planning to eat him, so he quickly opens his status screen to pick a skill for self-defense. Unlocking the ability to fire rocks from his mouth, he uses it to kill the slime with ease. Relieved but hungry, Tama realizes he hasn't eaten since his reincarnation and decides to try the slime. And to his surprise, it tastes delicious. And even better, eating monsters grants him their skills, and from the slime, he gains the ability to store items. Encouraged by his newfound power, Tama decides to explore the dungeon further to see what other monsters or meals await him. And being an S-rank, none of the dungeon's inhabitants pose a real threat, and he effortlessly slays minotaurs, golems, and snakes, devouring them and absorbing their skills. So life as a cat monster isn't so bad after all, and Tama begins to enjoy his new existence. Meanwhile, at the dungeon's entrance, a well-endowed elf girl arrives, ready to begin her adventuring day. Back with Tama, his exploration leads him to a treasure chest sitting in the middle of a room. Thrilled, he rushes to open it, excited to see a treasure in real life for the first time. And inside he finds a massive gem, but before he can celebrate, he realizes the chest was a trap. And instead of being a mimic, the trap teleports him to a hidden boss room. So now Tama finds himself perched on the back of an earth dragon. And unlike the other monsters he's faced so far, this one is also S-ranked, meaning he won't be able to one-shot it like the rest. The earth dragon then mocks Tama for daring to intrude upon her lair, vowing to end his life. But Tama, literally only an hour old in this new life, refuses to die so easily. So he retaliates with his rock attack, but it's hilariously ineffective against an earth dragon, and the rocks bounce harmlessly off her tough scales, ricocheting into the ceiling and creating a small hole. The dragon counters by slashing at him, and Tama uses his iron body skill to defend himself. But while the skill keeps him alive, the slash still leaves him with severe injuries. The dragon, impressed by his survival, declares him tenacious but still no match for her, so she lunges forward to finish him off. But in a last-ditch effort, Tama activates a newly unlocked flight skill and slashes out her eye with his tail before escaping through the hole in the ceiling. Gravely wounded and losing blood rapidly, Tama desperately tries to make it out of the dungeon to find a safe place to recover. But he's mere steps away from the exit when he collapses from blood loss. As he lies helpless on the ground, he hears something approaching from around the corner. Unable to move, he assumes whatever it is will easily finish him off. But instead of a threat, it's the well-endowed elf girl from earlier. Spotting Tama's near-lifeless body, she rushes over to help him. Tama wakes up hours later, finding himself lying in a soft bed with his wounds bandaged. So he confusedly wonders where he is until the elf girl walks in carrying a bowl of milk. Remembering her face from before he passed out, Tama marvels at her beauty and silently admires those massive, well-done melons. The elf girl is relieved to see Tama awake, commenting on how severe his wounds were. She can't fathom how a tiny kitten like him could have ended up in the middle of such a dangerous dungeon. So Tama quickly realizes that she thinks he's just an ordinary cat rather than an S-rank behemoth. And since he can't talk, there's no way to correct her assumption. But even if he could, why would he want to? After all, this misunderstanding means he gets to sleep on her legendary cushion every damn night. Over the next few weeks, Arya continues to care for Tama until he has fully recovered from his injuries. One day, as Arya heads out for her usual dungeon run, Tama reflects on how grateful he is for everything she's done for him. She not only nursed him back to health, but also gave him food, a warm place to sleep, and unconditional kindness. Determined to repay her, Tama swears to protect her with his life, no matter what. So to ensure her safety, he decides to secretly follow her into the dungeon. He then sneaks aboard the boat before it departs and hides. When they arrive at the dungeon, Tama keeps a close eye on Arya, while staying hidden in the shadows. He worries about her potentially getting into some kind of ridiculous situation, like losing her clothes to a slime or something absurd like that. Determined to be ready for anything, he prepares himself to jump in at the first sign of danger. However, his concerns quickly ease as Aria encounters a group of goblins. She activates her acceleration skill and dispatches them with incredible precision, cutting them down effortlessly. After the fight, she bends down to collect the goblin ears for the reward, and after watching her in action, Tama is genuinely impressed. His experience as a knight allows him to recognize the level of skill and speed in her swordsmanship, and he can't help but admire her ability. As Aria finishes storing the goblin ears, she spots another goblin lurking behind a corner and readies her stance again. She's already met her quota for goblins today, but if this one insists on attacking, she'll deal with it. What she doesn't realize, however, is that this isn't a regular goblin, it's a goblin mage. And before she can react, the goblin launches a massive fireball at her. Completely unprepared for such an attack, Aria finds herself in serious danger. Tama can't stand by and let her get hurt. Yet he knows using any of his overpowered skills would reveal that he's a monster, something he's not ready to explain. And instead he acts quickly, pushing Aria out of harm's way and lunging at the goblin mage. And with a slash of his regular kitty paws, Tama causes the goblin to stumble backward and tumble down the dungeon stairs to its demise. Aria, stunned by the turn of events, can't fathom how or why Tama is in the dungeon, but her gratitude for his intervention is clear. On the boat ride back to town, she lets him curl up on her ample chest, rewarding him with belly rubs, and that shit makes him hooked on it. After returning to town, Aria heads straight to the Adventurers Guild to submit the goblin ears she collected. On her way to the reception desk, she's stopped by Lord Casman, a man she's met before and has been actively trying to avoid. Casman, as usual, tries to convince Aria to join his party, but she politely declines, already well aware of his reputation as a scumbag. But Casman refuses to take no for an answer. As if to prove his sleaziness, he reaches out, aiming for a double dirty cheek grab. But before Casman can make contact, Tama leaps into action, biting his hand and latching on tightly. Casman screams in pain, flailing wildly, but Tama doesn't let go. When Casman finally shakes Tama off, the cat lands on his face, clawing him up before jumping back to Aria's chest. Casman, now enraged and humiliated, reaches for his sword, intent on attacking Tama. But before he can swing, the Guildmaster Arnold Schwarzenegger, known as Anna, grabs Casman's sword mid-draw and warns him that the guild has strict rules against drawing weapons for petty reasons like fighting a cat. So she warns him that there will be serious consequences if he proceeds. Realizing he's no match for Arnold's authority, Casman reluctantly backs down and storms out of the guild. Aria then thanks Arnold for stepping in, but he says it's nothing and praises Tama for defending her so fiercely. Aria then heads to the reception desk, where Arnold documents the goblin ears, officially completing her quest. Afterwards, Aria sits at a table to relax and spend time with Tama, and things seem wholesome as she tickles his stomach, but the mood and the looks in her eyes take a turn when her fingers drift a little too low, grazing his more private areas. And the pervert elf looks way too damn excited about that shit. Later, Aria gets ready to take a bath and insists on bringing Tama along. Still clinging to his honor as a former knight, Tama refuses to enter a women's bath. But Aria has other plans, and despite his protests, Tama ends up in the bath with her. While they soak, Aria begins to talk about her dreams. She tells Tama about how her village was nearly destroyed by demons years ago, but the legendary sword Saint Alicia appeared and saved everyone. And since then, Aria has dedicated herself to becoming as strong and heroic as Alicia. The next day, Aria heads to the guild with Tama, and as they walk through town, Tama notices how well liked Aria is by everyone. The townsfolk greet her warmly, showing how much they admire her. When they arrive at the guild, Aria cheerfully greets Arnold at the reception desk. However, Arnold's face turns serious as he warns her that today isn't a good day to be here and advises her to leave quickly. Unfortunately, before Aria can take his advice, Casman struts into the guild with an air of smugness. He loudly announces that after being injured by her cat, he reported the incident to the Baron, and as a result, he was issued a special order declaring that Aria's pet cat must be put down. Aria is horrified, even though she hasn't had Tama for long. He's already incredibly precious to her, and she can't bear the thought of losing him. so she falls to her knees, pleading with Kasman to show mercy. Kasman, reveling in her desperation, proposes a duel. If Aria wins, Tama's life will be spared, but if Kasman wins, Aria must agree to marry him. The terms are grossly unfair. Not only is Kasman a higher rank than Aria, but the stakes are heavily skewed in his favor. Yet with no other options to save Tama, Aria reluctantly agrees. The duel begins, and he immediately kicks Aria in the side, sending her sprawling. As she recovers, he sarcastically compliments her speed, taunting that it won't be enough to defeat him. Aria then switches tactics, throwing a flurry of daggers at Kasman. But his knife-proof cape renders the attack useless, and he easily deflects them. Kasman then closes the distance and presses forward, relentlessly striking with his sword. Aria struggles to defend herself, but is eventually disarmed, leaving her vulnerable and at his mercy. With her weapon gone, all hope seems lost for Aria. Tama watches the scene unfold, his mind racing. If he does nothing, Aria will be forced to marry Kasman. But if he steps in and uses his skills, everyone will realize he's a monster. Kasman then raises his sword, ready to deliver the final blow and force Aria to surrender. But just as he swings, Tama makes his decision to protect her and leaps in front of the blade, activating his iron body skill to block it. The force of the skill shatters the sword, leaving Kasman stunned. Tama then unleashes a powerful howl skill, sending Kasman flying into a cluster of nearby trees. And by pure coincidence, the broken sword flies in the same direction, aiming straight for Kasman's balls. And this result ensures Kasman's day goes from bad to absolutely miserable. The crowd erupts into murmurs, stunned by what they've just witnessed. Everyone knows they saw the cat use skills, something no ordinary pet could do. Tama had anticipated this moment, knowing his actions would reveal his secret. So he's certain it's only a matter of time before the crowd realizes he's a monster, and when they do, they'll likely come for him. But despite this, Tama feels no regret, because his only concern was protecting Aria, and in that he succeeded. Aria and Arnold then approach Tama cautiously, both clearly amazed. They begin discussing what Tama could be, but instead of concluding he's a monster, they convince themselves he must be an elemental cat, a rare and magical creature. Tama, stunned by their misunderstanding, can hardly believe his luck. Arnold then declares Aria the winner of the duel, and with the matter settled, everything returns to normal, or as normal as life can be for an overpowered cat, with the most legendary and comfortable cushion in the world. The next morning, Aria tries to cuddle Tama out of bed, but the playful kitten decides to nibble on her ear in a way that leaves her flustered and blushing uncontrollably. As a former honorable knight, Tama quickly decides to stop before things get even more awkward, so he jumps off the bed to walk away. However, Aria continues calling after him, her tone filled with longing, making the situation even stranger for Tama. Later, Aria takes Tama to the blacksmith shop to visit her friend Vulcan. The moment they arrive, Vulcan's attention is immediately drawn to Tama, unable to take her eyes off the adorable kitten. Aria talks about Tama, sharing stories as Vulcan eagerly asks to hold him. Tama looks thrilled as Vulcan lifts him up, admiring his cuteness. However, Aria quickly shifts focus to the reason for their visit. She needs Vulcan to make armor for Tama. Vulcan is delighted at the idea, excited to work on something so unique and charming. So she begins taking Tama's measurements right away, promising Aria she'll create the perfect armor for him. As Vulcan gets to work, Aria bends down to whisper to Tama, asking if he's ready for an adventure. Tama eagerly agrees without hesitation, his tail flicking with anticipation. While Aria and Tama make their plans, Vulcan is laser-focused on crafting the armor, treating the task like it's her life's mission. In just under 10 minutes, Vulcan proudly presents the completed armor, and it turns out to be a masterpiece. Tama looks dashing in it, and the fit is perfect. However, Vulcan admits she's still struggling with another issue: Aria's sword. Despite reforging it over 100 times, she hasn't been able to make it any lighter, which makes it difficult for Aria to wield effectively during her quests. After some thought, Vulcan suggests forming a temporary party. This way she can observe Aria in action, watching how she swings the sword to better understand the problem and find a solution. That day, the team dives into the dungeon, where Vulcan quickly demonstrates her strength, smashing through the hideous goblins they encounter. Aria watches with pure excitement, marveling at Vulcan's boldness and power, while Tama thinks Vulcan is both fearless and incredibly skilled. Her skills are further validated when she blocks a fireball attack from one of the monsters, using an ability derived from her smithing talents. Vulcan explains that her power allows her to wrap her armor in different elements, making her versatile in battle. Then, with the path cleared, Vulcan steps aside, encouraging Aria to take over with her sword. Their next challenge turns out to be an ugly, oversized orc. The creature's grotesque appearance is both disgusting and intimidating, but Aria attacks anyway. Using her acceleration skill, she tries to land a strike, but the orc skillfully blocks her advances. Tama then steps in, soaring through the air and activating his iron body technique to shield Aria from an incoming blow, distracting the orc just long enough. Seizing the moment Aria strikes, and eliminates the beast in a single and decisive attack. Vulcan observes Aria's movements closely and notices her longsword hinders her flow in battle, making her strikes less effective. Aria, unsatisfied with her performance, turns to Vulcan and asks for an even tougher challenge, determined to push her limits and grow stronger. Impressed by her resolve, Vulcan encourages her to advance to the next floor, promising even greater challenges ahead. Descending further, the team encounters a swarm of slimy, perverted ropers instead of massive beasts. Tama instantly grows anxious, fearing these slimy creatures will grab his mistress from all angles with their tendrils. Vulcan then warns Aria to move smartly and avoid their sticky grips at all costs. So Aria charges in with acceleration, but the ropers' speed makes them tough opponents. Her strikes fail to connect with their bodies, and one of the ropers shatters her heavy sword, leaving her defenseless. But just as she's about to be ensnared, Vulcan hurls a knife toward her. Aria catches it mid-air and swiftly drives it into the roper's core, killing it in one precise motion. With renewed determination, she pivots to take down the next slime. And while Vulcan observes Aria's battle style, he quickly concludes that Aria's true strength lies in wielding shorter, lighter weapons instead of her heavy longsword. And in no time, Aria slices through the monster's body parts with unmatched speed, leaving Vulcan utterly stunned. She always knew Aria had skill, but she hadn't expected this level of speed and efficiency in taking down the second monster. Just as they think the battle is over, the monster splashes its goo all over Aria, coating her from head to toe, while regrowing its limbs. Disgusted and furious, Aria cringes, declaring that only Tama has permission to do something like that. Fueled by her outrage, she obliterates the creature in a single devastating move. But this time she cuts it into so many pieces that there's no chance of it regenerating. Vulcan and Tama rush to congratulate her on her incredible display of skill. But while Vulcan moves closer to offer praise, Tama, being the cheeky little kitten he is, stops halfway to steal a bit of juice from the dead monster to absorb its skill for his own use. Meanwhile, Aria, still fuming, vents her anger on the remains of the roper that had dared to splash its nasty goo on her. She relentlessly pierces its already mangled body, muttering revengeful thoughts, while Tama watches in bewildered silence, wondering if she's gone a little overboard. After the massacre, Aria opens up to Vulcan, sharing the story of her motivation for wielding longswords. She recalls meeting the Sword Saint during her childhood, a figure who became her idol and inspired her to pick up the weapon. Despite the longsword being ill-suited to her natural fighting style, Aria dedicated years to mastering it in an effort to emulate her hero. However, with her recent realization that daggers complement her skills far better, she has decided to embrace this newfound strength. Tama listens attentively and offers his support, reassuring her that this change will only make her stronger. Seeing Aria's growth, Vulcan proposes heading to a deeper floor of the dungeon, confident in Aria's ability to handle the challenges with her daggers. Before moving forward, they take a break near a Philosopher's Stone, a rare artifact that repels monsters in its vicinity. As they rest, Aria gazes at the stone, triggering a wave of painful memories from her childhood, when her home was attacked by demons. Lost in thought, she barely notices Vulcan's concerned look. But when Vulcan gently asks if something is wrong, Aria brushes it off, quickly changing the subject and steering the conversation elsewhere. While the group takes a break, Amma splashes around in a pool of water, carefree and enjoying himself. Seeing him having so much fun, Aria decides to join in, removing her plot armor and giving Tama a clear view of what's beneath. Vulcan soon joins, and the three take a refreshing dip together. But as Tama swims, he tries hard to focus on anything but their exposed classified documents. During their downtime, Aria casually asks Vulcan about her usual dungeon party, unintentionally touching on a sensitive subject. Vulcan admits that her party disbanded after 2 of the members fell in love, and the female member became pregnant. So the couple decided to settle down, leaving their adventuring days behind. The conversation then takes a strange turn when Vulcan mentions that elemental cats like Tama can crossbreed, and she muses about what might happen if Tama grows larger and goes into a serious heat season. Aria surprisingly finds the idea exciting and enthusiastically encourages Tama to grow up faster so she can have his adorable meow meow babies. And that shit makes Tama silently thinks to himself, what kind of madness is this? Then, as their break ends, the group heads to the next dungeon floor, where they encounter a fierce minotaur. And unlike the goblins and ropers from earlier, this creature is a formidable opponent. Aria then approaches carefully, accelerating toward the beast and executing her whirlwind/technique. However, her attack barely scratches the minotaur's thick hide, leaving her shaken. Vulcan then steps in, offering encouragement and helping Aria regain her composure. Motivated by Vulcan's support, Aria refocuses, launching a series of faster and more aggressive strikes. The minotaur, overwhelmed by her speed, begins swinging its massive weapon wildly. One swing strikes the ceiling, causing debris to fall dangerously close to Vulcan. Tama, quick on his feet, uses his Etha howling skill to deflect the falling boulders, saving Vulcan just in time. Inspired by Tama's bravery, Aria sees an opening and delivers a powerful strike directly to the minotaur's chest, bringing the beast down for good. As Tama cheers for Aria's hard-earned victory, Vulcan stands in awe, marveling at the little cat's strength and courage. And her thoughts wander as she can't help but think that Tama is a really powerful alpha male. Back at the Adventurers Guild, Aria, Vulcan, and Tama hand over the loot they collected from their dungeon raid. They then approach Arnold, who examines the deep cut marks on the minotaur remains and asks who managed to inflict such damage. With a proud smile, Vulcan reveals that the cuts were the result of Aria's newly honed skills. Arnold, recalling how much weaker Aria was when she first arrived in town, commends her growth and hard work. Flattered by the praise, Aria thanks Arnold, feeling a sense of accomplishment. With their earnings in hand, the trio heads to a local restaurant to celebrate their successful adventure. At the restaurant, Vulcan wastes no time indulging in heavy refills, impressing Tama, who can't help but wonder if she's a seasoned drinker. Aria then takes the opportunity to express her gratitude to Vulcan for her support during the raid, admitting how much fun she had working together. Vulcan shares the same sentiments, showing off a rare medicinal herb she collected in the dungeon as a memento. Their lively conversation makes Tama nostalgic, reminding him of his previous life as an adventurer when he had comrades to share such moments with. Still, Tama acknowledges that his current life isn't bad. After all, being the pampered pet of a gorgeous elf is a dream few would turn down. As their bond strengthens, Vulcan proposes forming an official party. Aria, caught off guard, is flattered but too shy to answer. Sensing her hesitation, Tama gently bites her hand and places it on top of Vulcan's, effectively sealing the agreement on her behalf. The group erupts into cheers, celebrating their newfound partnership, and riding the high of camaraderie, they decide to order more drinks and make the evening one to remember. Later that night, Tama finds himself trapped between Aria and Vulcan's plot armor. The snug, awkward situation doesn't help him sleep, especially when he hears Aria murmuring in her sleep, mentioning something about hoping Tama doesn't get too rough. Suspicious and mildly flustered, he manages to maintain his composure. Needing a distraction, Tama checks his stats and is surprised to find he's eligible for evolution. However, evolving could transform him into a massive behemoth, potentially ending his current life with Aria and Vulcan. Choosing loyalty over power, Tama decides to remain their cherished and dependable pet. The next morning, while walking through town, Aria and Tama encounter 2 thugs harassing a young girl, accusing her of being a pickpocket. Aria steps in immediately, and when the thugs notice her elemental cat, they scatter to avoid conflict. Aria then comforts the girl, learning she's an orphan, and takes her to a local church where nuns care for other children. Listening to Aria's heartfelt conversation with the nuns, Tama is filled with admiration for his master's kindness and vows to support her even more than before. That evening, Arnold calls Aria to the Adventurers Guild to congratulate her on being promoted to C rank. He hands her a gleaming new rank pendant as recognition for her hard work. But their celebration is interrupted by a commotion at the quest board. Arnold then explains that people have gone missing in Leonard, a nearby town, with whispers of demons being responsible. Hearing this, Aria's resolve strengthens. Driven by her grudge against demons, she eagerly asks for more information and declares her intention to accept the emergency quest without hesitation.
Upon hearing the details of the case, Aria pressed Arnold for every detail she knew about the case. Vulcan grew uneasy at the elf's eagerness to take the lead, doubting it was within her capability. Yet Aria, unwavering, was determined to act before more people fell victim. Impressed by her determination, Vulcan offered his help, and Arnold observed that under the circumstances, a mercenary company might soon recruit the two. At that moment, a young man in a tunic stepped into the guild. He introduced himself as Cedric, and the adventurers immediately recognized him as the Duke's eldest son, renowned for his skill in managing labyrinths. Cedric greeted Vulcan warmly and assured her and Aria they'd soon fight side by side. Tama then remembered Cedric from the war called Ragnarok when humanity fought against demons. Despite devastating losses, victory was achieved thanks to a prodigious boy, the Grand Mage, who led them to triumph and earned legendary hero status. Amid the excitement, Aria grew concerned their group was too small to handle such immense threats. Arnold, captivated by Cedric's charm, reassured her, claiming Cedric could amaze anyone. As Aria held onto him affectionately, Arnold reminded her to keep such displays private. Aria curiously asked if they were a couple, and Vulcan confirmed it, leaving Tama baffled. Remaining quiet until they returned home, Tama noticed his master's unease. Understandably so, given the looming dangers of their journey alongside the hero. The cat Tama licked the elf's face as if to comfort her, and she kissed him back. Startled by the exchange, Tama refocused as the group prepared to depart. On their journey, they encountered new allies: the silver-haired Danny, the humanoid monster Howard, the fiery red-headed Keeney, and Marietta. Aria introduced Tama, who quickly won everyone over with his irresistible cuteness. Marietta even took turns carrying him. However, their peaceful ride came to an abrupt halt when a band of orcs blocked the road. Cedric instructed Danny to handle the threat, and the swordsman effortlessly defeated the orcs without any visible effort. Vulcan gets intrigued and asks about Danny's abilities, and Kenny confirms he hasn't used any skills. Aria began to grasp the incredible strength of the Ragnarok heroes, while Tama marveled at Danny's sheer raw power, eagerly anticipating the chance to fight alongside him. When night blanketed the sky, they reached Leonard Village, where grateful townsfolk welcomed Cedric and his group. One villager revealed that many locals had mysteriously disappeared, with a search party lost in the ruins and another girl abducted the previous night. The revelation brought painful memories of Aria's homeland's invasion flooding back. The village leader then shared that Cedric's knights were their final hope. Seeing the warriors weary from their journey, the villagers swiftly prepared a hearty meal to replenish them. Later, as they settled into their lodging, Aria grew curious and asked why each of her companions had chosen to become knights. Danny explained that his family's poverty forced him to join to repay debts, and Howard shared a similar tale. Keeney needed money to buy medicine for her sister, and Marietta sought freedom for her father who was enslaved. Hearing these heartfelt stories, Tama noticed the sadness behind their motivations, and even Aria regretted raising the question. Yet the knights held no shame in their choices because they had paid their dues and were now carving their own paths. Cedric, on the other hand, revealed a starkly different reason. He had no interest in love or familial obligations. As the Duke's son, he joined the Order because he lacked a greater purpose and discovered joy in slaying monsters. His bluntness didn't sit well with everyone, but no one challenged his perspective. After dinner, it was time to bathe. While the girls relaxed, the boys, overcome by youthful mischief, tried sneaking a peek. Tama, ever alert, caught them in the act and with a thunderous shout, sent Danny and Howard scurrying back to their quarters. Cedric watched their hasty retreat with mild amusement, wondering about their excitement for the journey, though he couldn't fully relate to it. With the group refreshed, they ventured deeper into the ominous Leonard Labyrinth, unaware that a sinister creature was stalking their every move. To this lurking predator, the adventurers were nothing more than prey. It silently observed, preparing to gather strength and set its deadly plan into motion. Before long, a pack of sea werewolves blocked the adventurers' path. So Howard the Tank stepped forward, raising his massive shield and taunting the wolves to draw their attention, creating space for the others to strike. Cedric then showcased his unmatched swordplay with precision, while Aria leaped into the fray, determined not to be outdone. Tama, observing the armored werewolves, considered unleashing a powerful roar, but opted for a water-based attack instead. Then, with pinpoint accuracy, he pierced one werewolf and swiftly took down two more, leaving his party stunned. The hidden monster, watching from the shadows, was shocked at how quickly his wolves were defeated, especially by Tama, who seemed to wield elemental power. Yet despite their strength, the monster knew he couldn't allow these intruders to advance. Readying himself, he prepared to escalate, either by deploying more weapons or stepping in personally. Back with the heroes, everyone was awestruck by the elemental cat's abilities. Arya, utterly captivated, openly expressed her admiration, even suggesting she wouldn't mind being subdued by Tama's strength. Though he found her words peculiar, Tama resisted his animal instincts, reminding himself that Arya was still his master. They soon arrived at a chamber filled with an oppressive, crushing atmosphere, so Cedric raised his hand, halting the group. Then from the shadows emerged Beryl Astaroth, the labyrinth's master. He declared that their journey would end here, revealing himself as a surviving demon seeking vengeance for his fallen kin. Danny immediately accused Beryl of targeting Leonard Village as an act of revenge, but the demon dismissed the accusation, claiming that Leonard was just the start of a far greater plan. Then with a sinister grin, he summoned a group of trolls to attack. Recognizing their power, Cedric ordered the team to split up, but Beryl anticipated this and conjured a protective wall that separated Tama from the others. Then we see a troll charged at Tama, who retaliated by tearing off its arm. However, to his dismay, the limb regenerated almost instantly. Meanwhile, Cedric's team gets surrounded, and the group knows their only chance is to rely on Cedric to lead their escape. So Cedric unsheathed his blade, which began to pulse with dark magic. And with a wicked laugh, he charged at two trolls, slicing them apart so thoroughly they couldn't regenerate, removing them from the battlefield entirely. Beryl's eyes widened as he recognized the forbidden magic Cedric wielded, an ability used only by the Great Mage during the Ragnarok War. Cedric then smirked with amusement because this was going to be so fun for him. Then we see Tama attempt a stone war attack, but the trolls barely flinch and their wounds heal instantly. Realizing the danger, Tama retreats, his mind racing as he considers whether to evolve into his stronger form. But evolving would mean severing his bond with Arya, a sacrifice he isn't willing to make. Resolute in his decision to remain her loyal companion, Tama unleashes Flame Roar instead, scorching the trolls so their wounds cannot heal. His bold tactic works and the trolls collapse. Furious at the relentless assault, Beryl readies himself for the next threat. Vulcan charges in, swinging his massive hammer, but Beryl deftly dodges and parries Arya's follow-up knife strike with his dagger. Beryl smirks and mocks the hammer's sluggish swings, only to be caught off guard when Vulcan kicks up a cloud of dust, blinding him. Seizing the opportunity, Arya darts forward and drives her blade into Beryl's chest. At first he dismisses the wound as trivial, but then light radiates from the elf's enchanted dagger, amplifying the damage and forcing him to his knees. Snarling in pain, Beryl strikes back with his dagger, delivering a vicious wound to Arya, far more than a simple cut. The group rushes to her side, panic setting in as Tama fears the weapon might be poisoned. Then we see that Beryl is still alive and smirks darkly while declaring that humanity will crumble when true power returns. Then with those ominous words, his body begins to petrify, turning to stone before crumbling into dust. Meanwhile, the poison spreads rapidly through Arya's arm. Cedric examines it and grimly identifies it as dragon venom, a deadly toxin. Howard presses the wound against his enchanted shield in an attempt to slow its progress, and the group rushes back to Leonard Village. The village doctor confirms their worst fears. Dragon poison is fatal within a day and a half, and no one has ever survived without the eye of an earth dragon. Desperate to save Arya, the team debates hunting the beast, but Cedric vehemently objects, arguing there isn't enough time. As Arya's pain intensifies, Tama, overwhelmed by guilt and desperation, flies out the window. Memories of Arya saving his life flood his mind, and he vows to return the favor, even if it costs him everything. He races to the ruins where he was reborn as an elemental cat, prepared to face the Earth Dragon, the same creature he fought once before and barely survived. The dragon, surprised to see Tama return, sneers and mocks him for fleeing their last encounter. But this time, Tama doesn't waver. He knows deep down that his current strength won't be enough. Faced with no other choice, Tama makes a life-altering decision. He chooses to evolve into a full behemoth, embracing his ultimate power to save Arya.
Tama, now in his colossal form, rains down flames, roaring furiously at the dragon below. The monster, however, is too fast, and she lunges forward, unleashing her own torrent of fire and sinking her teeth into Tama's throat like a scorching wrench. Tama's pupils quiver in pain, but this was all part of his elaborate plan because he knew the dragon would drop her guard like a fool once he let her attack. As she bites down, Tama counters by whipping out his flame edge, driving it into her eye and popping it like a water balloon. the dragon finally falls in defeat, but Tama's mana runs dry, reducing him back to his little furball form. There's no time to dwell on his sad evolution because he has to deliver the dragon eye to his master, so he quickly stores the dragon eye in his inventory, unfurls his bat-like wings, and flies off to deliver it to Aria. Back at their house, Aria lies patched up, fighting to survive. Vulcan sits by her side, tears in his eyes, as the party watches the heartbreaking scene in silence. Then suddenly, a loud thud outside startles everyone. Cedric and Danny rush out to find the Earth Dragon's corpse, and the tiny exhausted Tama lying on the dragon bloody. Cedric shouts that there's no time for details, ordering everyone to grab the dragon eye and heal Aria immediately. As they hurry, Tama quietly prays for Aria, unaware that she is trapped in a deep nightmare. In her dream, Aria sees her village in flames, ravaged by destruction. At the age of 13, her home was attacked by demons, hunting for the Philosopher's Stone and mercilessly killing anyone in their path. Then we see young Aria in her terror tried to run but stumbled upon the demons and was so frightened that she shit herself. Just when she thought all hope was lost, an elemental cat, much like Tama, appeared and saved her life. Aria then jolts awake, the memory of the past fresh in her mind, so she now understands why she has always loved cats. Her eyes then land on Tama, curled up beside her, and she feels a wave of gratitude. The next morning, everyone is overjoyed to see Aria looking better. Arnold, overcome with emotion, starts crying uncontrollably. While she's out of immediate danger, the toxin still lingers in her system, so Aria must spend the next few days recovering fully. Later that night, Tama ventures out into the forest in search of monsters to test his skills. Ever since his battle with the Earth Dragon, he's been grappling with how his evolutionary forms work. He's noticed that his colossal form has disappeared, but in its place, he has gained new abilities from the dragon. Spotting a massive buffalo monster, Tama decides to practice his newly acquired Dragon Claw and Dragon Fang. Then, with swift and brutal efficiency, the monster is dispatched in seconds, leaving Tama surprised by how much stronger he has become. Suddenly, the sound of light footsteps catches Tama's attention. Out of the darkness steps a maiden, her tattered clothes and sleek features contrasting with her unsettling aura. What's strange is that she addresses Tama directly, calling him the Strong One as though she knows him. But what's creepier is how she sniffs one of Tama's armor pieces, as if she's been hunting him down. The woman then demands to know why Tama is in his furball form, then breaks into a frenzied chase, shouting about his strong body and attempting to grab him. Tama terrifiedly screeches and sprints toward a tiny hole, narrowly avoiding her grasping hands. The woman's unhinged behavior completely freaks him out, but he manages to escape. He then returns to Aria, who is peacefully asleep, and curls into her arms for comfort, still shaken by the encounter. And as he drifts off, Tama can't shake the feeling that the crazy woman seems familiar. The next day, Aria dresses Tama in a cute linen outfit with frills, making him look utterly adorable. The two then head out for a picnic, and Aria sets up a spread of treats, handing Tama some berries to munch on. As they relax, Aria brings up the Earth Dragon, recalling how they had found Tama battered and bruised near its corpse. Aria then shares more about her past, asking Tama if he remembers her earlier stories. She recounts the demon attack on her village of Lumineers, when an elemental cat had saved her life, and then the village was ultimately rescued by the Sword Saint, who defeated the demons single-handedly. That day, Aria had vowed to become a strong warrior, leaving her mother and family behind with a promise to return stronger. However, Aria's voice trembles as she admits she feels like she's always being saved, whether by Vulcan, Cedric's party, or Tama himself. Tears then form in her eyes as she confesses that, despite her vow to protect her comrades and her people, it feels like she's the one constantly needing protection. Tama then quickly jumps to his feet, comforting Aria as she wipes her tears. She understands what he's trying to tell her, that she shouldn't feel down because after all, she defeated Beryl herself and deserves some credit. Later, Aria and Tama visit Vulcan, who reveals that the armor Aria ordered is ready. Aria had earned a fortune as a reward for defeating Beryl and sold the loot from the trolls Tama defeated to get some extra cash. She had invested it all in buying high-quality armor. Although it was expensive, Vulcan insists that her safety is priceless. The new armor is both cute and practical, and Aria can't contain her excitement. She hops around, thrilled with how light and comfortable it feels. Vulcan then explains every detail of the craftsmanship, but Tama only watches quietly, admiring how cool his master looks in her battle outfit. The three of them then decide to take a trip and test the armor in action. As they enter a tunnel, the atmosphere is tense because it's been some time since Aria has ventured into such a place. Tama then jumps off her shoulder and uses his Lion King's blessing to grant her and Vulcan resistance to fire and ice, a gesture that makes Aria gush over how adorable he is. Soon, the group encounters an ogre, and Aria doesn't hesitate. She charges forward with blinding speed, surprising even Vulcan because she even didn't use her skill, and with one precise blow, she beheads the creature, leaving it no chance to counterattack. Aria celebrates her success, praising the armor and her sharp new knives. But their moment of joy is short-lived. Tama suddenly freezes, sensing an unsettling presence nearby. Out of the darkness steps the creepy woman, muttering about destiny and her quest to find Tama. Aria confusedly asks if she's a lost adventurer from ruin, but the woman denies knowing such a place. She declares herself born of darkness, reaching out desperately for Tama. Vulcan speculates that she might have amnesia, but her ranting grows more bizarre. She begins spouting secrets that are better left unsaid, then shocks everyone by demanding that Tama impregnate her. Aria remains calm and waves her off, firmly stating that Tama is just a little kitten, as Tama gets horrified and hides in Aria's arms for safety. Seeing that, the woman gets enraged further and accuses Aria of taming Tama and stealing him away. But despite the bizarre interaction, Aria remains compassionate and invites the woman to join their group, believing it's safer than leaving her alone where she might end up as a slave or worse. Aria reassures Tama that he will be protected, and the woman reluctantly agrees, seeing this as her best chance to stay close to Tama. On their way back, they decide to give the wild woman a name. The girl doesn't care much, but Aria points to a star and suggests calling her Stella, saying it means beautiful in her homeland. Seeing even Tama likes the name, the woman agrees to be named Stella. Once home, they begin the hard task of washing Stella. She asks impatiently how long it will take, but Aria is determined to scrub her clean. When it's done, Stella feels amazing and hops up, marveling at the piece of stone used to clean her. Vulcan corrects her, explaining it's soap. Getting carried away, she cannonballs into the pool and splashes around like an excited child. Aria then calls Tama over to wash his little feet, and Stella, seeing this, gets jealous. She yells that it's not fair and demands to wash Tama herself, but Aria calmly turns her down, saying only she as his owner has that privilege. Later that night, Tama wakes up to Stella telepathically calling him. He sees her creepily staring at him. To his shock, they're communicating through their minds. Stella reminds him of how he slaughtered her, confusing Tama until she mentions the labyrinth. That's when he realizes she is the reincarnated Earth Dragon. Stella then explains she was born in darkness with S-rank abilities, invincible to other creatures until Tama defeated her by popping her eye to death. She was then reborn and reincarnated, much like Tama, but this time as a tattered and fragile maiden. As she lay dying in her past life, she swore a vow to find Tama in her next life, and she wasted no time fulfilling that promise. Tama stands hunched and nervous, listening to her story, and asks if she's back for revenge, but she reveals her intentions are far worse. She then calmly declares that she has completely submitted to him and has no interest in battle, and instead she confesses that all she wants is his cat juice to multiply, leaving Tama utterly horrified. She passionately admits that he is the only strong male she has ever encountered, and she has fallen hopelessly in love. And without warning, Stella lunges at Tama, her intentions crystal clear. But just in time, Aria intervenes, pulling Tama to safety and leaving Stella quivering in a corner in shame. Aria then scolds Stella, firmly warning her to stay away from Tama before calmly heading back to bed. However, as Tama tries to settle down, he can still hear Stella's ominous muttering in the darkness, promising that she'll find a way to reach him eventually. The following morning, Aria treated Stella to breakfast, experiencing real food for the first time. Stella momentarily lost her mind in sheer delight before quickly regaining her composure and diving into another internal conversation with Tama. After breakfast, Aria took her on a walk through town, hoping the sights would jog the memories Stella claimed to have lost. However, the only thing Stella could recall was the image of Tama leaping into her golden gloves, which she insisted was the only mystery she wanted to solve. This made Tama realize that in Stella's eyes, Aria was the stronger of the two. Aria then proposed that Stella become an adventurer as a way to find purpose. To help her prepare, she brought Stella to Vulcan's shop to address her ahem plot cannons. Both Aria and Vulcan were slightly skeptical of Stella's choice to dress in an outfit that resembled something out of an OnlyFans catalog, but Stella adored how the snug fit kept her melons cozy and secure. Aria then turned her attention to finding a suitable weapon for Stella. Stella, however, dismissed the concern by showing off her half-dragon abilities, which revealed she still retained a significant amount of her strength from her past life. The group tested a variety of weapons until Stella settled on a massive shield designed for giants. Tama then curiously asked why she hadn't chosen a sword, so Stella explained that losing to him had taught her the importance of defense. Satisfied, she paired the shield with a sword for balance, and the group headed into the dungeon to test her new equipment, with Aria assigning Tama to watch over her during the fight. But before Vulcan could devise a proper strategy, Stella charged ahead and stumbled upon 3 goblins casually enjoying a meal. The startled goblins then lashed out immediately, so Aria and Vulcan yelled for Stella to fall back and regroup with Tama, but Stella ignored them. She threw down her shield and sword, unleashing her dragon claws to shred 2 of the goblins in a heartbeat. The 3rd goblin launched a desperate counterattack from behind, but Stella grabbed her sword mid-swing and banished the creature to hell with a single strike. Aria and Vulcan stood frozen in disbelief, utterly paralyzed by what they had just witnessed. Meanwhile, Tama observed that Stella had been reborn with the same abilities she possessed in her previous existence. With no goblins left to challenge her, Stella grew increasingly annoyed and declared her hunger for stronger foes. The group then decided to venture deeper into the dungeon, eventually encountering 2 orcs. Stella wasted no time, slamming the first orc against the wall with a thunderous force. The second orc hesitated, clearly regretting its decision to attack, but it was too late because Stella made quick work of it, leaving the corridor drenched in the entrails of her foes. Emboldened, the group decided to press even deeper into the dungeon, and eventually they arrived at a section infested with bacteria blobs. But before Aria could warn her, Stella charged headfirst into battle. However, her confidence quickly wavered when the blob's tentacles wrapped around her, sending a shiver down her spine. Tama, quick to demonstrate the consequences of underestimating these enemies, pointed out what could happen to her milkers if she got caught. This provoked Stella into launching a reckless attack, but the blobs countered by seizing her sword and drenching her in sticky love juices. The unexpected assault caused Stella to lose control, and Aria and Vulcan rushed in to save her. Tama, however, sensed that Stella's erratic behavior was tied to her dragon instincts. Using a tentacle skill of his own, Tama restrained the girls and the blobs, then unleashed a powerful water blast that wiped the blobs out, ending the reign of terror brought on by the cultured creatures. After regaining her composure, Stella felt humiliated by her moment of weakness. Tama offered her gentle reassurance, promising to shield her from harm in the future. This heartfelt vow caused Stella's dragon instincts to flare up again, as her body responded with an overabundance of dragon slime. Resolving to learn from her mistakes, Stella agreed to accept Vulcan's guidance, vowing to grow stronger and become a true asset to the team. This conversation triggered memories of the adventurers she had defeated in her past life, and she recalled how formidable they had been when working together. The thought of achieving that same level of strength now filled her with excitement and determination. Just then, Aria fell victim to her own intrusive thoughts. Turning to Tama, she fervently begged him to use his tentacle skill on her plot cannons. Tama was completely stunned, unable to comprehend the sheer absurdity of the request. But before he could even process what was happening, Aria began shedding her armor with reckless abandon. But fortunately, Vulcan intervened just in time, managing to subdue Aria before the situation spiraled even further out of control. Moments later, they resumed their trek into the dungeon, hunting for their next unlucky prey. After some deliberation, the group paused to strategize about Stella's role in their coordinated maneuvers. Given her brute strength and resilience, it was decided she would serve as the team's vanguard, acting as both a shield and an enforcer. Not long after, they encountered a cluster of orcs, so Stella immediately stepped forward, brandishing her shield to provoke the creatures into attacking. One orc, driven by reckless aggression, lunged at her, but she swiftly countered with a single decisive strike that severed its arm. As she moved in to finish the creature off, the desperate orc, now terrified, turned and fled like a scared pig. But Stella wasn't about to let it escape, and without hesitation, she pursued it with relentless determination. Meanwhile, Tama activated his enchanted enhancement ability to bolster Area and Vulcan's sorcery, inadvertently intensifying Area's already brewing obsession with his eggplant. Together, they tore through every remaining creature in their path before stumbling upon a serene dungeon bath. Without a second thought, the group decided to unwind. What followed was utter chaos for Tama, who wrestled with his inner demons while the girls brazenly flaunted their melons, pushing the boundaries of his composure. Things escalated when Area, with zero shame, settled Tama on her chest, claiming it was his rightful place to relax. Not to be outdone, Stella pressed her dragon melons against Area's, igniting a fierce competition over who truly deserved Tama's attention. Stella, now fully convinced that Area was inferior, declared that she could cherish Tama far better than her. Area, of course, refused to back down, and their heated dispute reached a boiling point. Vulcan, caught in the middle of the chaos, attempted to mediate. She suggested that Stella take on the role of Tama's junior wife, a compromise that only fanned the flames of their argument. As tensions rose, the sheer force of their clashing melons launched Tama straight into the ceiling, leaving him questioning every life choice that had led him to this moment. Later, the group returned to the guild to introduce Stella to Arnold, but before officially registering her as an adventurer, Arnold introduced them to a man named Reyes, who had a unique request. He explained that he was preparing for an extended journey and needed a formidable team to safeguard a valuable possession. When Area inquired about the nature of the item, Reyes insisted it wasn't something to discuss in public. He then led them to a secure storage facility, revealing that the mysterious item he needed protection for was none other than Stella's dragon carcass, which left her in shock. Reyes reveals that these remains once belonged to a powerful being that stood defiantly against its foe. This revelation immediately captivates the merchant, compelling him to acquire the artifact without a second thought. Meanwhile, Stella remains frozen, her eyes locked onto the skeleton. Sensing her distress, Tama reaches out to her through telepathy. Stella admits that an eerie sensation washed over her the instant she laid eyes on it. A buried memory of her own demise resurfaced, bringing with it an unbearable sorrow. In reality, this grief stems from the profound bond she shares with the mighty Tama. At that very moment, Arnold makes his entrance, and just before Area departs, he hands her the Alpha promotion tag for rank B. Soon after, the group sets off on their escort mission, with Arnold and Vulcan bidding farewell to the travelers. As they continue their journey, the adventurers encounter several threats, yet nothing manages to slow the carriage's steady progress. Thanks to the flawless performance of Area, Stella, and Tama, when the day draws to a close, the group establishes camp, and presents Area with a bouquet of lilies of the valley. Intrigued, Stella asks if these flowers are special, and Reyes explains that his fiancée Eliza cherished them, and he used to gather them for her. Hearing that the man has a fiancée, Tama suddenly understands why he shows little interest in her master. Area then inquires about his intentions for the Earth Dragon skeleton, and he admits it's a fine question. A weapons merchant had already begun stockpiling rare materials, convinced that a great war was looming. This remark triggers Tama's memory of when the demon they battled mentioned the resurrection of a powerful creature. Finally, Reyes remarks that they should reach Gladstone by tomorrow, suggesting that a rest is in order. With that, the group settles down to sleep. Yet, in the early hours of the morning, an unusual phenomenon begins to spread across the area. Tama rushes out of his tent, striving to understand what is unfolding, as everything around them seems affected, except it appears, for their own camp. Area then wakes up in the midst of all this chaos, while Reyes calmly reassures everyone that the cargo is safe, explaining that what they are witnessing is simply the formation of a new labyrinth. Though few are aware, It is entirely possible for a dungeon to spontaneously pop up out of nowhere. The group then pushes forward, making their way through the thick fog that rolled in during the dungeon's creation, and Rias assumes they've navigated it safely. Aria breathes a sigh of relief, though she admits she'd love to come back and explore further, while Tama ponders how newly formed labyrinths always offer rare materials freshly available for the taking. After distancing themselves from the fog, Rias turns to the adventurers and asks if they are interested in entering the labyrinth, noting that opportunities to explore a newly minted dungeon like this are as rare as hen's teeth. Naturally, it'd be even sweeter if they agreed to sell any valuable loot they found to him. The group's excitement builds over the challenge, but the merchant warns them to stay on their toes. After all, this place didn't exist just hours ago, so no one can say for sure what horrors lurk within, so every precaution is a must. Bearing that in mind, as they near the fog, Tama activates the Divine Lion's protection to shield his team. With that enhancement, Stella feels absolutely free to charge headlong into any danger, immediately sprinting forward despite Aria's frantic calls to slow down. Unsure of how to rein in the wild elf, Aria recalls that Vulcan had scribbled a precautionary note in case she ever lost control, and the note read that if Stella fights alongside the team, she will allow her to hug Tama once. Hearing these words, Stella instantly reconsiders her reckless dash, turning back to rejoin her allies and settle down, all for a chance to snag a hug from his favorite cat. But amidst all this commotion, the group suddenly hears the sound of feminine laughter echoing around them, and a magical sphere materializes, cheekily asking if the adventurers are on the treasure hunt. The orb then signals for them to follow, and without a moment's pause, Stella dashes after it. But the illusion proves treacherous because it lures them straight into an ambush where two giant monkeys come charging. Stella then steps up as the front line, goading the attackers and drawing their attention onto herself. When one of the monkeys smashes her shield with a headbutt, Aria seizes the moment to swiftly eliminate both creatures. Aria then praises her companion's superb teamwork, yet Stella grumbles that her efforts were not merely for the group's benefit but specifically meant for Tama. Amid this chaos, a nearby bush begins to rustle, and a soft, seemingly innocent voice pretends that no one is there. Not easily deceived, Stella commands the hidden figures to emerge before she has to pursue them. In response, two pixies materialize, each strikingly different in size. The smaller one introduces herself as Lily, a high pixie, while the larger one presents herself as Fairy, a high dryad. Curious, Stella asks what these beings might taste like, to which Aria replies that they are pixies, commonly found in labyrinthine forests, though she herself has never encountered one before. Afterward, she greets the pair, yet they seem solely fixated on Tama, immediately picking him up to lavish him with affectionate pats. Feeling that this favoritism is unjust, Stella launches an attack in exasperation, but Tama quickly intercedes telepathically, urging her to relax. Stella insists that these little creatures had intended to trap the group and even harm them, but Lily promptly refutes the claim. She explains that she and Fairy had no harmful intentions because they simply wanted to befriend the elemental cat and were merely guiding him toward the treasure. Speaking of which, Fairy reveals the splendid item hidden behind this labyrinth. When they open the box, they find an exquisite flask containing a potion that appears incredibly rare. Lily and Fairy inform them that similar treasures are scattered around the area, but to obtain them, they must first secure a key concealed within a hive teeming with giant, wicked bees. No sooner have they heard this than the bees attack, forcing Stella to take cover while Tama quickly counters with his howl. Simultaneously, Aria follows up with a whirlwind cut, slicing through all the bees in their path. Following their victory, Fairy picks Tama up once more, marveling at how powerful he is despite his small, endearing size. Lily compliments the two companions of the cat, while Stella makes it clear that she is the one who truly gets things done. Meanwhile, Aria retrieves a key from a tree, and Lily along with Fairy explains that she will be responsible for opening the door to the labyrinth's boss. the guardian of the dungeon's main treasure. Area figures that this place must harbor some exceptionally rare items and suggests they take a break before proceeding, given their exhaustion from the long journey and the uncertainty ahead. At that moment, the pixies eagerly request to be taken to a human city, revealing their long-held desire to visit one. Later, the pixies are enchanted by their very first glimpse of a city. Area, wanting to keep them safe, urges them to stay close so they don't get lost. However, the pixies are so mesmerized that they dart off toward the first enticing scent they detect. Frustrated, Area has to scold them, warning that if they aren't careful, they might be captured. After all, fairies are rare and valuable. Finally, Area declares that it's time to head to Ria's store and see what treasures they might come across along the way. Just then, she finds the pixies once again scampering off, this time snatching a bowl of human food from a nearby stall. Noticing this, Stella insists on sampling the food as well, and Area quickly steps in to assure the stall owner that she'll cover the cost, mindful of his growing impatience. With that done, Fairy finally gets the chance to eat the food she had never seen before. Sometime later, the group visits Rias to have the rare item they recovered from the labyrinth appraised. Rias is thrilled to discover that it is the Tear of Truth, a liquid that prevents anyone who consumes it from lying. The merchant speculates that acquiring such an item must have been no small feat, and just as Area is about to recount the ordeal, the pixies suddenly burst into the room, behaving like two naughty children. Upon seeing them, Rias is unexpectedly moved and apologizes for becoming emotional, though the truth is he has never seen pixies before. He then mentions, rather abruptly, that he forgot to attend to another matter and leaves without more explanation. Later that night, as bedtime approaches, Stella sidles over to Tama, eager to collect her reward, and it's a warm hug from him, but the cat promptly swats her away. Still, even Area concedes that Stella performed remarkably well, so she asks her pet for just one embrace, and reluctantly Tama obliges. In that moment, Stella is almost in disbelief at what she's about to achieve. She hesitates, uncertain of how to claim her long-awaited prize. Finally, she softly strokes the little creature before leaning in with excitement to sniff his belly. Meanwhile, Vulcan joins the escort group after wrapping up her work in the city, only to be startled by a skeleton abruptly rising from the ground. But since the undead poses no significant danger, she casually shatters it with her hammer. However, as a bell tolls, a burst of purple energy envelops the scattered bones, leaving Vulcan scrambling to understand the bizarre phenomenon. At that very moment, the escort group arrives at the boss's door and turns the key. They step through the portal, leaving the fairies behind, who cheer enthusiastically for their comrades. On the other side, the team is met by a B-rank torrent dragon that immediately unleashes a flurry of potent magical projectiles, battering Stella's shield with relentless force. Still, Stella refuses to back down. Undeterred, she presses forward and bashes the dragon with her shield, successfully capturing its attention. Area seizes the opportunity to try a flank attack, but the dragon senses the maneuver and swings its tail in her direction. Reacting quickly, Stella dashes back to intercept the blow with her shield, shielding her teammate. Resolute in her determination to keep the beast occupied, she reassures her teammates that she's got this, urging them to join the fray and end the battle swiftly, all while hurling taunts at the dragon as she fights. Tama is blown away by what Stella has managed to pull off with the group in such a short time. Once again, the tank remarks that she's the kind of person who simply gets things done. As the torrent dragon lunges at her with its claw, Stella grabs its entire limb, carving out a crucial gap in its defense, a gap that Tama immediately recognizes as his chance to strike. Without wasting a second, he unleashes his flame howling and wraps the enemy in his tentacles. At that very moment, Area charges forward at full speed, delivering a rapid slash to its throat that inflicts a fatal wound, ending the battle and sealing their hard-earned victory. Tama exults in their success, celebrating the defeat of their first boss and lauding his master, while Stella proudly boasts that they couldn't have triumphed without her intervention. Shortly afterward, the group stumbles upon a treasure chest containing 2 scrolls. Once activated, these scrolls emit a burst of potent energy into Area's body, bestowing upon her an ancient ability known as Sacred Blade. With this new power in hand, The team makes its way back to the labyrinth forest in search of the pixies, only to find that the two are nowhere to be seen. Growing increasingly worried, Tama rushes toward the bowl of food that the fairy had been holding, fearing that something terrible might have happened to them. Meanwhile, back in his office, Rias rings his bell and reflects that it won't be long before something major unfolds. As he muses, his eyes linger on a portrait of his late fiancée, Eliza. Later, as the group trudged back home, they moved through the forest in a state of anxious silence, entirely unaware of the fate of the two missing pixies. Their eyes cast downward in sorrow, and they finally emerged into the city. There, Stella and Aria meticulously relayed every detail of their experience to Vulcan. In turn, Vulcan proposed that they visit the tavern to search for additional clues. Suddenly, a butler strode into the room accompanied by two hooded figures, announcing that Count Gladstone was seeking Aria. As he spoke, it became clear that the butler was shamelessly scrutinizing the women's melons, his eyes lingering suggestively on each of them. He then remarked about Stella and Vulcan, complimenting their striking appearance and big beauty, and confidently assured that the Count would be thrilled to see them too. Stella, confused by his insinuations, remained noncommittal, while Aria firmly declared that they were occupied at the moment, but promised to visit the Count later. Regardless of who the hell he was, the butler then clarified that defying a direct order from the Count was considered a serious offense. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Vulcan quickly responded that they would make the necessary preparations. With that, the butler led the way, waiting in a carriage outside for the women. As the butler departed, Stella questioned why they had to accompany such an eccentric character, especially when their true mission was to locate the fairies. Vulcan, however, mentioned that she had heard some intriguing rumors about Count Gladstone. During the carriage ride, Vulcan disclosed that this noble was notorious for abducting women. Alarmed, Stella asked whether he might have taken Lily and Fairy, and Vulcan confirmed that this was exactly why they had reluctantly agreed to follow the Count's butler. After a while, they finally arrived at the noble's mansion. The butler stepped forward and rapped on the master's door to announce the guests' arrival. The Count beckoned everyone inside, and as soon as he saw them seated on his sofa, he commented that he had never encountered women as breathtaking as these. Vulcan expressed her sincere gratitude for his warm hospitality, with Aria echoing her thanks. Then, in a sudden burst of inspiration, the Count snapped his fingers and suggested that they might become his friends, or more accurately his lovers. That repulsive bastard confidently claimed that no one had ever regretted such an arrangement, while Tama silently observed that this unsightly man was every bit as detestable as the rumors had suggested. At that moment, the butler enters, balancing a jug of tea as he gracefully pours a cup for each guest. Count Gladstone enthusiastically encourages everyone to drink, yet the women remain visibly wary, unsure of what the beverage might contain. Vulcan politely declines, explaining she isn't thirsty, but the Count insists they at least sample the tea. As Aria readies herself to sip, the Count nearly drools in anticipation. However, just before she can drink, Tama invokes the Lion King's blessing, fortifying his allies and ensuring their bodies remain unharmed. Moments later, all three finally take a sip. To the Count's amazement, their expressions light up with genuine delight, and they even ask for refills. Confounded, the Count questions his butler about why none of them have collapsed from the potent brew. Leaning in, the servant admits he isn't sure but promises to prepare an even stronger dose next time. Amid the escalating tension, Stella abruptly slams her fist on the table and demands to know where Lily and Fairy are. Without a moment's hesitation, she seizes the Count by his shirt, but he stubbornly insists that he knows nothing of their whereabouts. Using telepathy, Tama urges her to back off, and though frustrated, she reluctantly releases him in hopes of diffusing the situation. Still reeling from her outburst, Aria offers an apology on behalf of her friend. But before matters can settle, the Count abruptly shifts his tone and accuses them of being demons who have possessed the women's bodies. He declares that he must employ his family's secret purification method to cleanse both their bodies and souls, starting by locking them up immediately. At once, the butler claps his hands, signaling his armed hooded subordinates guards to encircle the girls. With a bitter laugh, Stella sarcastically thanks the heavens for dragging them into this debacle and readies herself to take down the men. Yet through telepathy, Tama warns her that now is not the time to act, while Aria and Vulcan do their best to reassure the Count that they aren't here to cause trouble. A soldier suddenly rushes in with alarming news. An army of undead has invaded the city, leaving devastation in its wake and heading straight for the Count's mansion. Count Gladstone immediately barks orders for everyone to prepare to flee, but the butler interjects, cautioning that venturing out now is far too dangerous. Instead, he advises that the Count retreat upstairs to remain safe. Embracing this plan, the Count quickly orders his servants to protect him at all costs before dashing up the staircase. The butler then inquires about what should be done with those women, but the fat noble couldn't give a damn, and with that his lackeys follow him. Left alone, Aria admits her deep concern for the city's inhabitants and expresses a desire to take action against the invasion. Her friends, resolute and determined, agree that something must be done. Outside, chaos reigns as swarms of skeletons scour the territory, forcing desperate citizens to flee in terror. Aria and Vulcan step up to lead the townsfolk toward the safety of the hills. Once the civilians are secure, the resourceful elf dives into the battle alongside Tama. Not content with staying back, Stella charges in with her shield, smashing several skeletons, though she finds their fragile nature almost laughable. Nearby, a skeleton makes a move on a defenseless child, but Vulcan springs into action. She crushes the creature and quickly scoops the frightened girl onto her back, ensuring she escapes unharmed. After regrouping with her allies, Vulcan grimly asserts that taking down the entire horde head-on is futile. Instead, their best chance lies in finding the mastermind controlling these undead. In agreement, Aria suggests they split up. Vulcan will continue shepherding the townspeople to safety and watch over the child, while Aria, Stella, and Tama set off to track down and neutralize the caster responsible for summoning the skeletons. Meanwhile, atop the rooftop, the Count huddled for safety alongside his butler and a loyal soldier. The protagonists, then alerted by the resonant toll of a bell toward Rias' mansion, arrive and confront him directly. Rias then declares that his vengeful quest stems from the fact that Count Gladstone was responsible for the death of his fiancée Eliza. Fueled by seething hatred, he conjures an even larger legion of skeletons. Tama quickly recognizes him as a necromancer. Rias then confesses that on his own, he could barely raise 2 skeletons, but with the aid of the pixies Lily and Fairy, his power multiplies dramatically. In a dramatic flourish, he reveals the 2 hidden pixies beneath his robe. Provoked by this spectacle, Tama accuses Rias of using the bell to control the fairies and hints that the arrow clutched in his hand might be part of this sinister scheme. Sure enough, Rias employs the arrow to drain mana from Lily and Fairy, channeling their extraordinary power to summon a genuine army. He boasts that fairies possess unmatched mana reserves, and by harnessing their strength, he unleashed an explosion that reduced his entire home to rubble, making way for the skeletal remains of an earth dragon, a prize he has long coveted. With a mocking tone, he thanks the opposing group, claiming that none of this would have been possible without their interference. Then, in a chilling display, he positions himself at the center of the giant dragon skeleton's chest, as if becoming the very heart of the abomination. Overcome with fury at the desecration of her body, Stella charges headlong through the horde of skeletons, cutting through them with relentless force only to be swatted aside by the massive paw of the earth dragon. In swift retaliation, Tama unleashes his ether howl, shattering the enemy's skeletal tail. Yet to their dismay, every fractured bone miraculously reassembles with uncanny precision. Seizing the moment, Aria activates her new skill, the Holy Blade. The sacred strike finally lands, dealing holy damage to the dragon, but at a steep cost because the technique drains copious amounts of mana, jeopardizing her physical well-being. Noticing the peril, Tama laments that he cannot presently evolve into his behemoth form and warns Stella that Aria won't be able to employ Holy Blade again so soon. Realizing they must buy time to rescue Lily and Fairy, Stella charges forward with her shield to clear a path through the skeletal horde toward the dragon, while Tama soars through the air along the same route, determined to support her assault. Amid the city, as residents hurriedly erect barricades to fend off the assault, Vulcan arrives, determined not to let them suffer alone. The little girl then leaves Vulcan and goes toward her mother. while Vulcan drags her massive hammer along the ground, etching a line that instantly bursts into a wall of flames, halting the enemy's advance. Meanwhile, shifting the focus to Tama, he bellows his flame howl and strikes his target with precision. Yet in the melee, Stella finds herself pinned under one of the dragon's enormous paws. Summoning her immense strength, she pushes back using her shield as leverage, resolutely refusing to be defeated by what she deems a mere empty husk. Seizing the opportunity, Tama conjures his tentacles to snatch Lily and Fairy away, thereby clearing a path for Aria to deliver the finishing blow to Rias. As the elven warrior prepares her skill, Stella employs her integral traction technique to fortify her legs. Breaking free from the paw's grip, and with a swift, decisive swing of her sword, she severs the beast's left arm. Tama then adds his flame edge to the assault, slicing through the dragon, while Aria channels her holy blade to strike a final, devastating blow to the creature's core. In an instant, the monstrous form dissipates into thin air, leaving Rias crumpled on the ground, mourning deeply as he realizes that his thirst for vengeance has evaporated like dust in the wind. Stepping forward, Aria insists that the figure before them isn't the true Rias that Eliza would never have desired revenge. But despite this, the man obstinately refuses to forgive Count Gladstone and rings his bell once more, determined to rally his skeletal army for another assault. Yet this time, only a single skeleton emerges, slowly advancing toward him. As it reaches out and touches his hand, the creature transforms into the image of his late wife, enveloping them in the illusion of an expansive, tranquil field. Eliza's spectral visage smiles gently, remarking that her husband never thinks clearly when overwhelmed by grief. Overcome with remorse, Rias begins to cry, pleading for her forgiveness and confessing that all was his fault. With a tender firmness, Eliza tells him that he must atone for his sins, even though the road ahead will be arduous, and then in a final act, she vanishes forever, taking the magical bell and the entire skeletal army, which had relied on that artifact for control. Back in the heart of the city, Vulcan watches in stunned silence as the undead dissolve into nothingness, while Count Gladstone trembles in terror as the remaining creatures vanish while scrambling across the rooftop. The following day, the entire public square was packed with citizens gathered to witness an execution. In a nearby tent, the Count's butler declared that this event was the perfect opportunity for the chief to display his authority. At that moment, Aria arrived carrying a jug of tea. She gracefully served a cup to Gladstone, who sipped the brew with a satisfied smile, clearly enchanted by its rich, expensive flavor. Tama couldn't help but remark that the tea was indeed far from ordinary. Soon after, the Count strode over to the guillotine where Rias was already positioned, ready to receive the fatal blow. But before the execution could proceed, the Count turned to the assembled crowd and introduced the true heroines of the city, Aria, Stella, and Vulcan. He then declared that the man responsible for the calamity plaguing the people of Gladstone was to be executed, questioning what force could have driven him to such ruthless actions. Rias responded, confessing that his deeds were fueled by a burning desire for vengeance over his fiancée's death. In a startling twist, Gladstone openly admitted that he himself had killed Eliza, insisting that disclosing this earlier would have ruined his carefully laid plans. The confession sent shockwaves through the crowd, and in that instant, the Count realized he had spoken far too much. Clutching the mysterious potion, Aria then inquired if the Count had any knowledge about the women who had vanished from the city. Disoriented by the sudden line of questioning, Gladstone immediately broke down and confessed that he was responsible for eliminating them all. Panic set in as the noble demanded an explanation, only for the calm elf to reveal that she had secretly mixed a few drops of a truth elixir into his tea, forcing him to unburden his darkest secrets before the entire crowd. Enraged by his revelations, especially since the missing women were cherished members of their community, the citizens erupted in fury, determined to see justice served upon their corrupt leader. In the midst of the chaos, Rias expressed his heartfelt gratitude to the heroines, thanking them for everything they had done for him. A few days later, the consequences of that tumultuous day were laid bare. Gladstone was stripped of his title as Count and condemned to life imprisonment for his crime. Rias, having narrowly avoided the death penalty, was also sentenced to incarceration, marking a bittersweet end to a tragic chapter in the city's history. The following day, the group embarked on a carriage journey. Midway through the ride, a jealous Stella blurted out whether Lily and Fairy should return to the forest. And while Lily, riding Tama as if he were a trusty steed, chose to stick with Tama, while Fairy offered sincere thanks for having been rescued. Quietly, the two of them then gazed out the window, lost in the serenity of the sea view. Determined as ever, Vulcan was eager to reach Ruine, and Aria gently reminded Tama that they were on their way back to the very town where they first met. At the guild, Arnold greeted their arrival with a warm, tight embrace, eager to hear every detail about their adventures in Gladstone. The entire guild buzzed with admiration for Aria's triumph over the undead dragon, which had earned her the well-deserved title of heroine. In celebration, Arnold presented her with a silver adventurer's tag, elevating her rank to A, while Stella was promoted to rank B. Then, amid all her excitement, Aria inquired about Vulcan's own promotion. Arnold explained that Vulcan had deliberately declined a higher rank, choosing instead to live life as a blacksmith. A lavish party soon ensued to welcome the heroes for coming home, where then Arnold proudly revealed a generous gift from Gladstone, and it's a 10-year supply of canned fruit. The girls were astonished by such an abundance, while Tama fretted about how they would store it all. Aria then suggested that Vulcan take charge of the barrels since she had ample space, but Vulcan protested that her storage was already overflowing with equipment and materials. Noticing the potential, Arnold proposed that it might be time for the elf to move out and establish her own place, funded by the reward from their latest mission. Confident in her earning power, Arnold assured them that she could afford a fantastic home. Taking a thoughtful sip from her mug, Aria agreed it was time for her first major investment, a place where friends could live happily together. She then turned to Talma for his thoughts. Though he remained silent, the supportive glances from the cat and the others made it clear they all backed the idea. The following day, they visited Hand Over Fist Real Estate Agency in the commercial district. When the agent asked about their ideal home, Stella declared she wanted a kitchen built for gourmet cooking, while Lily and Fairy insisted on abundant greenery, so a garden was non-negotiable. Aria, on the other hand, desired a spacious room, and Tama worried about overspending. The agent reassured them that he had just the property in mind, and then he led them to a secluded mansion on the outskirts, a stunning estate that met all their criteria. The group was thrilled. But then the agent revealed the unique twist that had kept the grand home unsold. Instead of a conventional privacy bathroom with a shower, the house boasted a generous outdoor bath. But to the agent's surprise, the women were delighted by the big bath, and Aria promptly sealed the deal. By late afternoon, the move was complete, and we see Lily and Fairy gleefully test the plushness of their new beds by bouncing on them, while Stella is bragging about finally having some of her wild desires with Tama, and Tama recalled with a wry smile how Stella had effortlessly hauled the heaviest items only to be rewarded by the honor of petting him, and without holding herself back, she treated the cat like a dog toy, while Aria silently observed their bizarre dynamic. The next day, Vulcan arrived with 2 buckets full of oval lobsters, a beloved local delicacy that made everyone's mouth water, especially Stella's. Stella then questioned their toughness, but Vulcan just laughed it off and reassured her that they were more than delicious. That evening, they feasted, and Stella devoured meat without restraint, clearly enjoying every bite. Later, the group's blacksmith was found sleeping curled up with Aria, with Tama squeezed in between as usual. While they dreamed strange dreams filled with odd visions about the elemental cat's tongue, Tama, though craving comfort, knew he still had work to do. He leaped off the bed, determined to master a new skill. After the final clash earlier that day, a massive elemental blast had erupted, and more importantly, Tama unlocked his 3rd form, even though he had believed that the 2nd would be his last. Still, a lingering fear gnawed at him. What if he never reverted to his cat form? Lost in these troubled thoughts, his reverie was abruptly shattered when Stella, drawn in by his muffled voice, stepped onto the balcony. Tama urged her to go back to bed, but she sensed his unease and refused to leave. Pressed for answers, Tama reluctantly admitted that he had gained a form even stronger than his 2nd. This confession sent Stella into a wild frenzy, desperate to witness the transformation firsthand. She chased him wildly, even demanding, in a mix of passion and exasperation, that he mate with her in this stronger form. The very next day, as the others enjoyed breakfast, she continued to hound him relentlessly through telepathy, her demands echoing in his mind. After breakfast, Lily and Fairy expressed their desire to expand the garden, and Arya eagerly agreed, reminiscing about the abundant greenery of her homeland. She offered to find a skilled gardener after lunch, but Lily and Fairy insisted on handling the task themselves. To Tama's astonishment, they demonstrated unexpected abilities. Lily and Fairy began to chant and beat a drum, channeling the essence of spring. Then, in mere moments, a tree shot up in the yard, but Vulcan dashed out in alarm. It turned out that the tree wasn't ordinary at all. It was a world tree, a legendary behemoth with roots infused with rare minerals. Then Fairy was promptly instructed to plant several common trees around the world tree to camouflage it, since drawing too much attention could be perilous. At the same time, the commotion resulted in the creation of a life spring in the yard, a mystical fountain reputed to heal any injury or illness. Vulcan lamented that managing the garden might become overwhelming if left unprotected, while Lily argued that the spring was fantastic for the skin, prompting Vulcan to reluctantly drop the matter, though she harbored other concerns. Indoors, Vulcan and Arya discussed the risks, noting that fairies like Lily and Fairy were prized for their rare talents and could easily be kidnapped, and their words filled Lily and Fairy with trepidation, while Tama curiously wondered aloud how Vulcan had acquired so much knowledge. Then, when the topic shifted to rare materials, Vulcan mentioned the high value of orchakum, but Arya pointed out that only elite artifact blacksmiths, an exclusive rank conferred by the government, could forge it, and Tama noted with a hint of regret that Vulcan seemed content avoiding promotions, lacking the ambition to rise even higher. Just then, Arnold burst in with urgent news. A formidable monster had appeared on the first floor of Ruine's dungeon and had already killed so many lives. The team quickly agreed to investigate, though the fairies ultimately decided to sit this one out, fearing that their exposure might endanger them. Noticing the sorrow in Arya's eyes, Tama let out a determined meow and stood firm, embracing his role as the team's protector. Although Arya couldn't quite decipher what Tama was thinking, she suspected he wanted everyone to be involved in the mission. With that resolve in place, the group ventured into the dungeon. Then we see Lily and Fairy in the expedition, and for added protection they received specialized gear from Vulcan. At the dungeon entrance, the team encountered an E-rank goblin accompanied by a surprisingly robust D-rank hobgoblin. Determined to prove their mettle, Lily fired off a precise fairy bullet that pierced the goblin's skull, while Fairy skillfully wielded a branch-turned whip to strike the hobgoblin, earning the group's admiration. Tama, observing their coordinated mid-range tactics, recognized the fairies' promising potential in battle. Despite their swift triumph, a distant ominous roar resonated through the dungeon. Vulcan suspected the sound might belong to a minotaur, though Arya doubted that such a powerful creature would appear so early, but Stella detected a strangely deep sense of despair within the roar. Venturing deeper into a labyrinth, the group stumbled upon an rank troll feasting on its fallen prey, even devouring the very minotaur they had speculated about. As they inched closer, the source of a terrified scream revealed itself. Arya instructed Tama to hang back so she could test the team's new abilities. Lily and Fairy then set an ambush, but Lily's fairy bullet failed to penetrate the troll's thick hide. Then Fairy swung her branch whip again, wounding the monster, though it healed almost instantly and soon spotted their position. The colossal troll then swung its massive club, but Stella managed to intercept the blow with her shield. Seizing the opportunity, Vulcan delivered a crushing blow to the troll's foot with her hammer, eliciting a cry of pain, while Arya dashed in to unleash a flurry of slashes. At Stella's command, Lily targeted the troll's eye with another fairy bullet, breaking its guard. With the enemy nearly vanquished, Stella lunged forward to stab the troll's chest, though the beast stubbornly endured. Noticing its waning strength, Vulcan signaled Arya, who then executed a final, decisive triple strike with her holy blade to end the creature's life. In the aftermath, Stella, whose was once a staunch lone wolf, confessed that teamwork had its merits, while Arya urged everyone to report their victory back to Arnold. Meanwhile, in the royal capital, a scout urgently warned the king that monsters were growing unnaturally aggressive, likely the handiwork summoned by demons. Elsewhere, a soldier informed the renowned sword Saint Alicia that time was running out, prompting Alicia to solemnly declare that the moment had finally arrived. Back with the group, Arnold announces that they've been summoned by the Emperor for an audience at his palace. Although Aria feels unworthy of such a meeting, Arnold reassures her that everything will be just fine. Vulcan echoes his support, though she can't shake a nagging feeling of foreboding. The following day, the party embarks on the long journey to the capital, spending several days on the road before finally arriving. There, they are greeted by a contingent of palace guards who promptly escort them inside. While most of the group is buzzing with excitement at the prospect of meeting the Emperor, Vulcan remains noticeably subdued. Upon entering the grand hall of the palace, they come face to face with Emperor Giselle and his chief knight Julius. Aria is taken aback when she learns that the Emperor already knows Vulcan by name, a clear sign of her significance. Julius goes on to reveal that during the Ragnarok war against the demons, Vulcan had played a pivotal role and was hailed as a hero. Although she has since been elevated to the esteemed title of Artifact Smith, Vulcan confesses that she asked to become a simple blacksmith as her prize. Just then, a portal opens, and out steps Beelzebub, a sacred demon lord who sided with the human. When Aria grows nervous at the sight of him, Beelzebub cuts her off by reading her mind, prompting Julius to scold her for such behavior. Beelzebub then declares that the reason for their summons is dire. The capital urgently needs their aid in combating a demonic force known as the Four Fiends, which threatens to resurrect Mammon, one of the 7 great demon lords, and thereby raise a full demon army. Tama recalls his previous encounter with a demon and is all too aware of the dangers involved. In the end, the entire party agrees to lend their strength to fight alongside the Emperor. Grateful for their support, the Emperor personally thanks them, and the campaign begins, starting with Vulcan. Julius orders her to forge powerful artifact weapons, providing her with all the necessary resources. Then he instructs the team to expand their abilities. The fairies are sent to train with Beelzebub, while Stella hones her skills under his tutelage. As for Aria, Julius has someone special in mind, so he escorts her into a secluded mansion where the great mage resides. Just then, a curvaceous blonde elf in maid attire bursts onto the scene, and Aria is overcome with emotion upon recognizing her as Alicia, the sword mage who once saved her life. Alicia too recalls the day she rescued the young Aria. However, when Aria introduces Talma as her elemental cat companion, Alicia remains unconvinced, insisting that someone else should take on the role of training Aria. But when Aria confesses that training under Alicia has long been a dream of hers, Alicia agrees to take on the challenge. Training begins, and as Aria wields her sacred blades with fervor, Alicia nonchalantly pulls out a simple wooden sword. Yet, just the sheer pressure of Alicia's aura makes Aria shudder, even imagining herself being stabbed. Summoning every bit of courage, Aria launches a full-on attack. Alicia easily dodges, but then declares with a smile that Aria has passed her test because only the brave deserve to be trained by her. Meanwhile, Vulcan is hard at work crafting powerful artifacts, leaving every blacksmith in awe of her skills. Over in another corner, the fairies train under Beelzebub, who orders them to read books, though the demon can clearly sense the immense mana each fairy possesses. Not far off, Stella is dueling with Julius, who refuses to take their match seriously. Despite her raw dragon strength, Julius easily trips Stella to the ground and scolds her for not using her head. Back with Aria, Alicia tells her it's time to take a break. At that moment, Vulcan pops up and gives Alicia a warm hug as old friends reunited. Aria can't help but point out how close they are, so Alicia confides that they first met when her master the Great Mage took her in. Suddenly, Alicia starts getting a bit loony, babbling about the Great Mage and his majestic presence, even had her squealing with admiration, just before pulling Aria aside to gossip more about him right there in the bath. Later on, they all take a communal bath together. In a moment that shocks everyone, Beelzebub announces that both she and Alicia are the wives of the Great Mage, and that revelation leaves everyone in shock. Stella then bursts in, declaring she wants the same for Tama, and the girls immediately start bickering over who gets to be the first wife to have Tama's cucumber. At dinner, the group enjoys a hamburger steak prepared by Alicia, who shares that the recipe was imparted to her by the Great Mage, hailing from a mysterious land known as Japan that practically no one knows about. That night, while everyone was fast asleep, Tama took a solitary stroll, and suddenly Alicia appeared beside him. With a soft tone, She asked him to protect the others when the time came, and then with a knowing smile, she revealed that she knew he was a behemoth. Tama was taken aback, even more so when he realized she had purposefully kept quiet about it until now. The next day, training resumed, and during the duel with Stella, Julius suddenly noticed something unusual. Beneath him there was a nest of eggs, and that makes him realize that Stella had been unconsciously protecting them throughout the fight. So he apologizes for the oversight. He then tells her that Arya needs a reason to become strong, but unlike her, she doesn't need that shit because she is already so damn powerful. She can't believe that she is strong, but Julius confirms that she is because she acts before thinking to stand in front of those who need protection. So that is something only the strong can do, and he tells her not to forget that. Later, after the training session, we see that everyone managed to master their newly acquired skills, except for Arya, who was still struggling, desperate. She begged Alicia to continue training her so that she too could learn the coveted skill. But before she could, Beelzebub appeared with grim news, declaring that training was officially over. Back at the palace, Beelzebub announced that the 4 fiends had manifested in different locations. 2 of them were already being dealt with, while the other 2 now fell to their group's responsibility. She then explained that 1 fiend had been spotted in Alicia's homeland. Though she had long retired, Alicia agreed without hesitation to return and defend her native land. Beelzebub then revealed that the other fiend was located in Ruine, and this place are surprisingly close to where Arya's family lived. But despite the unexpected news, Arya felt confident about their chances and boldly declared that they would vanquish these demons and safeguard their home. After a while, the group finally reaches the labyrinth rumored to be the haunt of one of the 4 fiends. With reinforcements provided by an allied party, they boldly step into its shadowy corridors. In the initial chambers, they're met only by a swarm of low-level creatures, but after all the countless hours of grueling training, Arya and her comrades are practically salivating to test their newfound powers and to show off Vulcan's exquisitely forged artifacts. Arya, with the finesse of a seasoned ballerina, slashes through enemies with her sacred blades, while Stella anchors the team as an indomitable tank, and the fairies unleash their magic that leaves their foes impaled. And together they make mincemeat out of the weaklings, as if it were just another day in a Marvel crossover. Pressing further into the labyrinth, they encounter far stronger monsters. At this point, the support team instructs Julius and Arya's unit to concentrate solely on eliminating the demons, while they handle the lesser monsters. Undeterred, the heroes press on and soon come upon a shattered door. As Stella's dragon senses heighten in anticipation of danger, Tama steps forward to provide additional protection before they continue deeper. Inside, they come face to face with Visago, one of the notorious 4 fiends, who is able to detect their heroic aura from miles away. With a sinister command, he summons 2 monstrous allies, Cyclops and Orthros, and orders them to slay the heroes while he retreats to the demon realm. However, Julius quickly intervenes and stops his ass, insisting that the heroes must first handle the summoned monsters while he deals with Visago himself. The battle erupts promisingly at first, where Tama and Arya engage Orthros, while Stella and the others focus their attacks on Cyclops. Yet, Visago proves to be far too powerful for Julius. With a single devastating strike from his dark magic, Julius is sent reeling into unconsciousness. Seizing the opportunity, Visago further augments his minions, making them even deadlier, before vanishing back into the demon realm, leaving the monsters free to press their assault. As the heroes struggle against the overwhelming force, Tama witnesses his determined elf master in peril, so he has no choice but to transform into his formidable 3rd behemoth form. Meanwhile, in a parallel labyrinth, Alicia swiftly dispatches the monsters before encountering yet the other fiend bathing with no fear and shame. Recognizing the demon as one she had vanquished years before, Alicia braces herself. The fiend declares that Alicia could never overcome her and then transforms into a dragon. Undaunted, Alicia effortlessly cleaves off the creature's damn head, decisively ending the encounter in second. Back with Tama, everyone is in shock at seeing him transform into his formidable behemoth form. But instead of fear, they revere him as a sacred beast, a force of nature, not evil. Realizing they cannot defeat this overwhelming power. The monsters sacrifice their own life forces in a desperate attempt to bring Tama down. Orthros launches a barrage of hellfire at Tama, forcing him to counter to hold the attack at bay. However, this defensive maneuver leaves Tama vulnerable to an assault by the Cyclops, a blow that would surely condemn him to hell. At that critical moment, Stella steps forward, hefting her massive shield. Despite Vulcan's grim warning that Stella might not survive, Stella accepts the risk without hesitation. In a stunning display of determination, Stella activates her full dragonic power and looks around at her comrades, declaring her love for each one of them. She recalls her lonely past as a dragon, once trapped in darkness until Tama killed her. Then she transforms into a human, and that gifts her the happiest days of her life alongside Tama and his crew. Back to the present, we see that when the Cyclops attack finally strikes, she holds it back with her shield, slowly succumbing to the pressure. On the sidelines, Aria refuses to sit idly while seeing her friend die, so she awakens her sacred armor, a special skill that purifies the entire area and vanquishes their foes. After the battle, as the group celebrates their hard-won victory, Tama suddenly feels his mana spiral out of control. In an instant, he reverts to his small, feline form and collapses onto Aria's melon, overcome with emotion. Aria hugs Stella tightly while cradling Tama between their huge melons, both of them touched by the sight. Meanwhile, Visago, the fiend responsible for unleashing the earlier chaos, senses that his monsters have been defeated. Though he can hardly believe that the humans managed such a feat, he is not ready to concede defeat, and he still harbors further plans. Back at the castle, the Emperor congratulates the heroes on their victory. However, he somberly informs them that according to prophecy, Visago is destined to lead the demon army to the elves' homeland. Aria, determined and resolute, knows that Visago's true target is the Philosopher's Stone. Alicia confirms this, explaining that the fiend plans to use the stone to resurrect the demon lord. Unwilling to let such a calamity befall their world, Aria and her steadfast crew resolve to journey to the elven homeland and stop Visago at all costs. As their journey unfolds, Aria's mind drifts to the harrowing days when demons laid waste to her homeland, Lumines. A shadow of sorrow and unease lingers in her heart as she recalls the moment she was rescued from the brink of despair by Leo, the elemental cat, and Alicia, the revered sword saint. Though the memories stir a deep-seated anxiety about the ongoing struggle in Lumines, she finds solace in the unwavering support of Tama and her companions. Their reassurances serve as a steady anchor, reminding her that she is never alone in this fight. Meanwhile, Arnold suddenly appears, playfully declaring that his flowing cape makes him feel like Elsa from Frozen, even though everyone knows he's only here to meet Captain Cedric. Alicia then steps in to soothe Aria, reminding her that she is no longer the fragile girl she once was and highlighting her new skill Excalibur, a power Aria plans to wield if the need arises. When the team finally arrives in Lumines, they are greeted by the awe-inspiring sight of a gigantic sacred tree, a venerable guardian that Aria explains has watched over the elves since before she was born. Soon after, the chief of the elves, Elven, warmly welcomes Aria and her comrades. He expresses deep gratitude to Alicia for once having saved them, though Alicia quickly redirects the conversation to focus on the pressing matter of fortifying the village's defenses. Elven informs the group that he has gathered reinforcements from neighboring villages, led by a fierce Amazon named Guzhina, who is sporting an eye patch, and immediately impresses Stella, prompting her to tell Tama that Guzhina is a force to be reckoned with. As they make their way past the village, the elves cheer exuberantly, welcoming Aria back to her home with open arms. Meanwhile, the fairies, enchanted by the village's beauty, slip away on their own to explore the surrounding forest. There, they are confronted by a knight named Fionn, accompanied by her elemental cat Leo, who demands to know the fairy's identity. Just then, Aria and the rest catch up, and upon spotting Fionn, Aria greets her warmly, remarking on how long it's been since they last met. After the fairies are gently scolded for wandering off, an unexpected moment of levity occurs. Tama's powerful aura suddenly causes Leo to roll over, exposing his belly, a sight that shocks Fionn, who has always known Leo as a proud and dignified creature. Recognizing that this is the very elemental cat who once saved Aria, Tama joins in the playful roll on the floor to show his respect. and soon the fairies can't help but join in the fun as well. Sometime later, Arya joins the leaders for a strategy meeting. While Julius frets over the elves' defenses, Elvan confidently explains that the village is well fortified against demons, and the added firepower from the Amazon warriors will make all the difference. Arya, clearly surprised, admits she never knew the Amazons had an organized team. Elvan then reveals that the team was formed just last year, with a captain whom Arya knows very well. To her utter astonishment, the captain turns out to be her own busty mother Leona. When Arya protests, asking how such a turnaround could be possible, Leona explains that right after Arya left the village, she discovered during training that she was overpowered, and thus decided to lead the Amazons. Meanwhile, as the strategy meeting continues, Stella and the others wait patiently when a group of villagers approaches them, whispering and asking if they really are as strong as they claim. Vulcan reassures the crowd, but Stella interjects that the strongest fighter among them is Tama, a figure whom Vulcan recalls as a graceful, powerful guardian who once saved them. Back with Arya, Elvan leads the group to the location of the Philosopher's Stone. They arrive at a towering sacred tree, where a secret entrance is revealed. Elvan instructs the Amazon warriors to stay on guard, while the rest of the team ventures inside. However, Alicia expresses a hint of suspicion toward Guzhina's motives. As they draw near to the Philosopher's Stone, the team is awestruck by its colossal presence. Using only a stick, Elvan demonstrates that the stone is protected by a powerful barrier, ensuring that the group can focus on the impending battle rather than on safeguarding the stone. Later, Arya leads her team to her home, where Vulcan finally gets a glimpse of the source of Arya's melons. Leona warmly offers to cook a feast for everyone, but before they begin the meal, Arya asks for a private moment with her mother to speak face to face. Shortly thereafter, Leona and Arya share tender mother-daughter time while bathing together, with Tama playfully joining in the fun. Despite the closeness, Arya voices her hesitation about having her mother join the upcoming battle. Leona, with gentle assurance, explains that she has always watched over Arya and believed in her dreams. She reveals that her own powers stem from a fierce desire to protect her home, just as she has done for her daughter. Tama, eager to help, declares that he will protect Leona, and she responds by caressing him affectionately, a gesture that clearly delights him. Moved by their bond, Arya finally agrees to let her mother join the fight, and they share a heartfelt hug, while Tama, in a moment of playful joy, gets to experience what he calls the dream of heaven cushioned by two legendary pillows. That night, while Arya sleeps soundly, Tama tries to wriggle free from her gentle hold. Arya lets out happy teasing noises, remarking how Tama's beast form could always give her a good clap if needed. Just then, Leona, still awake, and expresses heartfelt gratitude for Tama's constant protection of Arya, mentioning that his name is a frequent topic in the letters Arya sends back home. She earnestly pleads with Tama to continue protecting Arya, and he readily agrees, solemnly declaring that his life is dedicated to her safety. Meanwhile, a tense subplot unfolds. Guzhina, who has been scheming to betray the elves, is about to act when Alicia intervenes. With firm resolve, she confronts Guzhina, accusing her of being a demon spy. In a swift, decisive moment, Alicia kills Guzhina, effectively ending her treacherous attempt. However, unbeknownst to Alicia, Guzhina's vigilant owl watches the scene and covertly sends a message back to Visago, pinpointing the location of the Philosopher's Stone. No sooner does that happen than Visago opens a portal and unleashes his demons straight into the village. The onslaught causes chaos as the creatures begin firing upon the inhabitants. Acting quickly, Alicia conjures a powerful shield to block the demonic attacks. As the demons approach the barrier, they are repelled and collapse one by one. In the midst of the pandemonium, Julius rallies his troops with an inspiring pep talk reminiscent of Erwin Smith's rallying cry, then orders them to secure the village. The troops split up, each guarding a different entrance, while before the battle commences, Tama bestows upon his team the blessing of the Lion King, bolstering their defenses for the fight ahead. As the battle rages on, the forces press forward, driving into the enemy lines. Visago lets out a mocking, triumphant laugh, his voice echoing over the chaos. Monstrous troops crash against the magical barrier, their relentless assault threatening to break through. Some manage to slip past, but at the defensive line, Vulcan stands unshaken. With unwavering resolve, she swings her hammer with both devastating force and calculated precision, crushing her foes and turning the tide of battle. Not to be outdone, Stella taunts the adversaries by rhythmically striking her sword against the shield, using her newfound strength to swiftly eliminate anyone who dares approach. At the same time, Lily and Fairy join the fray, unleashing their signature Yggdrasil shot, a powerful technique that obliterated countless foes in a single blast. Watching the chaotic battle from a distance, Aria sprinted alongside Tama toward the epicenter of the conflict, knowing that it was her moment to provide crucial support. With impressive acceleration, she barreled through the enemy ranks, knocking down any monster that stood in her path. Meanwhile, Tama cleared a trail through the advancing lines using abilities like Stone Howl and Dragon Fangs, paving the way for their forces. In another part of the battlefield, Danny, Howard, Kenny, and Marietta united as always, facing the relentless challenge together. At the same time, Arnold showcased her prowess by conjuring sharp, elegant ice blades to freeze the invaders, his eyes sparkling with admiration for the beauty of ice magic. In the midst of the fray, a demon nearly struck Arnold from behind, but just in the nick of time, Cedric appeared to rescue his buddy. At the same time, at one of the wall's entrance gates, Fionn stands guard with her bow, keeping the invaders at bay, while Leo engages directly, using his massive fangs to tear into the enemy. Not far off, Leona, the formidable captain of the Amazons, faces an entire row of ferocious monsters on her own. With unyielding determination, she retaliates by unleashing a brutal shockwave that splits in two as it surges through the air, a testament to the power of her attacks. Amid the chaos, Visago never loses his smug smile. He taunts the defenders, insisting that since the enemies refuse to relent, they will soon face the full force of his wrath. To escalate the invasion to its next phase, Visago summons Nidhogg, an S-rank dragon renowned as a winged mount. The sheer size of Nidhogg instills dread among the defenders as the dragon soars toward the magical shield protecting the city, preparing to unleash a devastating elemental attack capable of shattering the barrier. As Visago executes his plan, he revels in having overloaded the holy sword by attacking from every possible angle. With its colossal strength, the winged beast eventually breaches the defenses and invades the territory. In response, Julius archers launch a series of ballista shots at Nidhogg, but the dragon demonstrates remarkable agility in dodging the projectiles. Then, another surge of that mysterious magical energy rains down on the city, permeating every corner. Amid the mounting chaos, the prince orders a strategic retreat for his troops, while Alicia focuses on reinforcing the magical barrier, confident that Aria and Tama will turn the tide of battle. Soon enough, the dynamic duo reaches the epicenter of the conflict. In a bid to level the playing field, Tama transforms into his third form. High above, perched on his dragon, Visago laughs derisively at the enemy's feeble defense. Not to be outdone, Aria charges forward on Tama, who retaliates by unleashing his signature flame howl at Nidhogg. The dragon quickly counters by blowing a gust of wind at Tama's magic, temporarily halting his assault. But Tama is far from finished. Exhibiting impressive versatility, he swiftly maneuvers to Nidhogg's flank and fires another series of fire howls. However, Nidhogg proves adept at evading each new attack. Seizing a critical moment, Visago uses a portal to reposition his arm, launching a precise strike at Tama's back and ultimately bringing Aria down with it. Without delay, Nidhogg ignites the entrance of the cave where the Philosopher's Stone is hidden. Almost immediately, Visago finds himself standing before the Philosopher's Stone, pride evident in his eyes, while Tama dashes forward with every ounce of speed he can muster, even though the atmosphere seems triumphant. Visago collides with the stone's protective barrier before angrily ordering his dragon to seize the artifact and carry it away. As soon as the Philosopher's Stone is removed, it triggers a deep rumble that shakes the entire village, making everyone acutely aware of the dire consequences. The huge sacred tree at the village's heart trembles as its leaves flutter, and the combatants watch in disbelief, while Elvan laments that the natural balance is being irreparably disturbed. Inside the cave, amidst the chaos and imminent collapse, Aria and Tama struggle desperately to hold their ground. Determined, Aria demands the return of the Philosopher's Stone, prompting Tama to charge forward amid the danger to confront Visago. In response, Visago refuses to back down and commands Nidhogg to counterattack. The dragon unleashes a torrent of breath upon the cave wall, intensifying the landslide. Yet amid this fury, Aria seizes a fleeting opportunity. Using the falling rocks as a makeshift boost, she vaults herself onto the winged beast and plunges her dagger deep into Nidhogg's tail. Soon enough, Nidhogg manages to escape the crumbling cave and soars back into the open sky. Not wasting a moment, Visago opens a portal back to the demonic world. Eager to reunite with the resurrected King Mammon, he knows that if he crosses through, all hope for Lumine's village will be lost, and that is a fate Aria is determined to prevent. Clinging steadfastly to Nidhogg's tail, she refuses to let go. Tama appears right behind her, ready to launch another fiery assault, but he quickly realizes that his master is holding on too tightly, making it impossible to strike without harming her. Noticing this hesitation, Visago grins wickedly, pleased that Tama isn't attacking while Aria is still beside him, and orders Nidhogg to launch yet another offensive. In a relentless display, Nidhogg fires its energy until it connects with its target. At that moment, Aria fears that disaster has struck. Visago boasts arrogantly, declaring the war won without even needing the beast's further intervention. However, just as hope seems lost, Tama rises like a phoenix from the ashes, resolute and determined to give his life if it means protecting his master. At the same time, everyone on the ground watches the aerial battle in tense silence, trembling at the thought that one of the four demonic lords might breach the portal. As Visago nears his destination, his mocking laughter grows louder. Yet he never anticipated that Aria would skillfully climb up the tail of the Nidhogg to get close. With an air of superiority, he orders her to step back and enjoy a front row seat to the return of the Dark King. But Aria, fiery and resolute, refuses to back down. She counters, admitting that on her own she has no chance. Yet with her allies by her side, victory is within reach. In a bold move, Aria leaps from Nidhogg's tail and drifts through the air, leaving Visago momentarily dumbfounded by her audacity. Seizing the moment, Tama unleashes his powerful flame howl. In retaliation, Nidhogg counters with a barrage of its own fiery breath, and the two engage in a deadly duel that tests the very limits of their strength. Although Visago appears supremely confident, Tama channels his power with such intensity that he pushes back Nidhogg's assault. Riding this surge of advantage, Aria strikes with the might of Excalibur, delivering a blow so forceful that its radiant glow lights up the battlefield from afar. Visago roars in defiance, proclaiming that he will not be stopped by a mere girl and her cat. But it is too late, because his form slowly begins to fade away under the overwhelming might of their combined power. With the fall of the Infernal Lord, the portal snaps shut and his minions retreat in disarray. As Aria tumbles toward the ground, Tama rushes to her rescue, ensuring she lands safely on his back. Breathing a sigh of relief, Aria declares that she knew her night would come. Not long after, Visago's magical core plummets from the sky, and Tama snatches it up to keep it in sight. Realizing that the war has finally come to an end, the warriors break into celebration. Alicia and Julius watch, impressed and nostalgic, as Aria and Tama soar together, a scene reminiscent of the legendary first hero and the sacred beast. That night, the warriors gather for a huge feast in honor of their mission's success and the safety of Lumine's village. Early in the celebration, Arnold makes a point to approach the heroes of the night, extolling their incredible feats. Cedric admits that he couldn't have endured even half of what Aria and Tama withstood during the battle. In another corner of the celebration, Vulcan and Howard engage in a friendly contest to see who can down the most mugs of drink. Surprisingly, the diminutive participant outpaces the bigger one, much to everyone's amusement. Nearby, the famished Stella catches the eye of Prince Julius, who boldly invites her to join the Imperial Army if she wishes to feast to her heart's content. Even before she can answer, he seems to already know her response, convinced that her formidable strength would be a tremendous asset, though ultimately such power would never truly serve the Empire's ranks. Meanwhile, Lily and Fairy share a laugh at a nearby table when suddenly Beelzebub reappears to commend the efforts of the Dryad and the Fairy. Not content with mere praise, she conjures an enormous banquet of food atop a long table, inviting the fairies to dive in whenever they please. Soon after, the authorities of Clariel formally honor Aria and Tama for their heroic deeds, pausing the festivities as the crowd listens and applauds the legendary duo. Beelzebub marvels that no one ever never expected a girl who once fought using whatever she had to become so essential, while Alicia declares that their achievements deserve heroic titles. With flair, Alicia personally christens them as Sacred Blade and Sacred Beast, symbolizing the intimate connection between the sword and the fangs that represent their strength. Overwhelmed by the honor, Aria breaks down in tears, remembering how Alicia had been her childhood idol. Then Aria's mother appears to offer tender support, and Aria vows to live up to the new title for as long as she draws breath. The entire feast soon becomes a jubilant celebration in the name of the heroes of Lumine's village. The following day in Ruine, as another grand celebration unfolds, Tama reflects on how quickly news of the Lumine's village war has spread. News of one of the 4 demonic titans attempting to revive Mammon. Shaking off the grim reminder, Tama is struck by the transformation his master underwent, rising from a D-rank adventurer to a celebrated heroine purely through her unwavering commitment to helping those in need, or so the cat observes. Yet even amid this festive atmosphere, Tama is all too aware that their journey is only just beginning. Day by day, he and his master will traverse the world, facing new challenges together. And for Tama, this is the life he cherishes, serving as the loyal cat companion to an elf whose secret S-rank prowess continues to inspire awe. But this is the end of Season 1 of this anime. So don't forget to like and subscribe to help me continue.